This is my first time telling my story, though I have done speeches before. It is very overwhelming, and I have never shared anything personal about me on a public platform. So I ask you to forgive me if I get emotional. And I'm going to keep my story here with me in my hand so I can share exactly what I want to share. Honestly, it is very difficult for a first timer to remember the whole thing, so thank you for your understanding. I was born in the beautiful nation of India. I think you can see it on the screen. I'm sure you might have heard or come across something about India. India is predominantly a Hindu nation with a rich cultural heritage. I was born in a Christian family in the south of India. The state I was born is called Kerala, which means land of coconuts. Every household, almost every household in Kerala has coconut trees in their property or in their garden. And coconuts are very much an unavoidable ingredient in all of our dishes. There is no dish without the coconut. I was born into a culture of color, status, religion, or caste system, and that means discrimination in one way or the other. Though I don't want to go into details, I would like to mention that skin color was a very important factor at that time, and even now I believe colorism is a part of Indian culture, because I still see a lot of advertisement on skin lightening or brightening creams. Growing up, I was always made aware of my skin color, not by my parents, but by my relatives, extended family, or by my neighbors. As I later would explain to my husband about some of the harrowing comments I received, he would just shake his head in disbelief or would just sit there silent. Some of the not so nice people would always compare me with my mother, who has a lighter skin color, and ask me, "Are you really her daughter?" And if I start sharing all the not so nice comments I received, your eyes would probably nearly jump out of your sockets. Even in Indian movies, the villains always had dark skin color or complexion. I was good in academics and in sports and other curricular activities, and I always excelled in these areas every year. But I have been discriminated by the people who should have shown me love and affection, or love and affection to the children in their care. My mother always stood up for me in the academics if there was any discrepancy in the grades or marks, because academics is something that Indians, or in India, always gave importance to. When it came to sports, she would always wait to see how the things would unfold or how it play out. Sometimes, a couple of times, I had to recompete in certain sports events because the teachers wanted some of the kids to win or someone else to win. Prominent roles in school plays were given to kids who had lighter skin color. Growing up, attending functions like marriages, parties were not that easy. Sometimes I was told certain outfits did not look good on me because of the skin color. Or you cannot do that because someone judged me based on my skin color. I have to stop getting emotional. Recently, a close relative told me while we were on a video call that it was nice the sun was on me so he could see me better. I'm like, no way, you're saying that now. I had to be a part of the social script of colorism. But you know what, I was never bothered about what people told me, or I was never bothered about the negative vibes. They never defined me. I was strong. I was my own person and was not worried about any comments. My focus was different even at that age. I always believed I was presentable, I was awesome. I read a lot and wanted to gain information so I could be smart. I wanted to be knowledgeable. These were the times when knowledge was not available at our fingertips, meaning to say that technology was not that developed. I represented my school for various competitions and won prizes. My mother would take me to all the competitions so I could participate. And she wanted me to get more education, quality education, so that I did not miss out any opportunity being a girl. That is gender discrimination, which is again prominent in India. Getting a good education also increased the prospects in marriage market. Just so you know, marriages were pretty much arranged, and only a few, like my parents, rebelled. My parents had a love marriage. My mother once told me, I did not want you to miss out on anything being a girl. I knew education is powerful. My mother was a nurse and she stopped working after my brother and I was born, and my papa was not with us during our crucial stages of growing and learning, as he was working in Qatar. Have you heard about Qatar? Recently, FIFA, the World Cup soccer was held there. So my mother, in my father's absence, gave my brother and I the very best education, the very best upbringing, and the very best childhood. We were educated in a private school. My mother is a warrior. She's my role model, and she's a woman of God. I was reminded as a girl I was not permitted to do certain things. Those certain things included whistling, not crossing your legs over, or speaking your mind. But I don't think I gave any care for any of those instructions. I finished my high school, which was when I was 15, and then I joined another school for higher secondary education for 2 years. During this time, one of my mother's friend suggested that I do elementary teachers training. So I put in my application. I was called in for the interview. And this is one of the only Anglo-Indian training institute in the whole of India. I still believe it is, even now it is one of the only training institute. It was started by the British, and everybody wanted to get admission into that training institute. Usually the candidates whose parents or their mothers, aunts, grandmothers did their training, got admission, it was easy for them to get into that institution. So in my interview, I was asked to do everything except dancing. And the interview panel was happy. They said, oh, at this very young age, you have managed to gather a lot of certificates. And I was very happy with their comments. And on our way back after the interview, we stopped by one of our family relatives' house, and my mother told the lady we were returning back after attending this particular interview. The very first thing the lady told my mother was, oh, your daughter is never going to make it. She's not going to get admission. It's only for special people, and you need high recommendations. So my mother said, we already have a high recommendation. She meant to say that God would work on our behalf. But the whole conversation was, your daughter wouldn't make it. She will not get into that enrollment process. But I was selected as one of the 40 trainees to do the training. And in 1995, I started my first teaching career. I come from a family of educators, but I don't think this information had any influence on me becoming a teacher, because I wanted to become a teacher at a very young age, even before I knew about this connection. In India, we have wooden windows. So when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, I can't exactly remember, I would gather children from my neighborhood, and I would write on this wooden window and teach them. So seeing this, my mother's brother-in-law made a proper blackboard so I could carry out my teacher activities. I love teaching, and I want to share another story. When I was in first grade, our class teacher asked us what would we like to become when we grow up, or what our ambition was. I remember I was the only student who said, I want to become a teacher. The rest of the students said they wanted to become engineers or doctors. Just so you know, in India, engineers and doctors have always topped the list of professionals. And I was the first in that class to get a proper job. And you might have guessed it, right? As a teacher, I was very happy. Teaching is my passion. I love being with children, and in my teaching career, I'm so fortunate to build a very good, great relationship with my students, former students, and their parents. And I'm still connected to many of my former students. And I believe their love and support are my greatest reward than any other awards a teacher could get. While I was teaching, I was invited to judge many programs. In my younger years, I was trained in Indian classical dancing and a bit of music. And in my early 20s, I was giving leadership classes and hosted many programs in my city. Saturdays, I worked in a local radio station hosting and doing programs. During this time, a desire came up in my mind to start a dance studio. Oh boy, that created a lot of chaos in my family, especially with my mother. She was afraid of the society, and I would not blame her. For a woman to think of starting her own dance studio is one thing, but an unmarried woman, a single woman planning to start a business was an absolute no-no in my society, in my culture. I was already receiving a lot of negative feedbacks, negative comments, because I was involved in the entertainment field. We, the females in India, had to stick to certain norms of the society. At that time, I was teaching in a renowned Catholic school in my city, and they knew I would do things like that because I brought a lot of changes in that school when I started working there, and I also wrote the school anthem for that school. Some of my colleagues did try to talk me out of this. They said, no, you shouldn't be doing this. You are a single woman, so you should forget about starting this business. Anyways, my family, who had to give in, and the parents of my former students extended their support to start this business. I rented a studio opposite to my school where I was teaching, hired 2 to 3 dance choreographers, started training, doing programs, and people came in to register their children. We were really doing great, and we won many competitions. But people were still telling me, you cannot do it, you wouldn't last. And I'm like, I'm doing it already. And one of my former colleagues even asked me, when are you going to shut this down? I had just opened my business. I had just opened the doors. And, you know, it was very heartbreaking. It was very sad. You're never encouraged. You're never motivated. And you're never supported. It's a tough situation. I believe now the situation has changed over time, and with the media, people are more exposed to the outside world, and they're more open-minded, and people have more access and freedom to what they want and what they wish to become. So here is another story. As we were getting successful with my dance studio, I wanted to do a Valentine's Day program under my studio banner. But at this time, I started getting very bad oppositions. They were really bad because we were threatened by a religious and a political group. They were literally like death threats. Remember, this was in the early 2000s. But I went ahead and printed posters, banners, printed tickets, got sponsorships, and got myself and my team ready. It was faith over fear. It was a bad scene in my house every single day because my mother was very upset. She was very concerned. She didn't want me to do the Valentine's Day program. She was worried that I would get a lot of bad reputation, which I was already heaping up. I was getting a very bad reputation all the time. My mother was worried that I would not get a groom. I could never understand and accept why girls and women with dreams and aspirations could never fulfill them or pursue them. My papa always supported me. Marriage is something that sealed the deal for a girl. That was the end for a girl's life. If you get a groom, you're good. But my papa always supported me. He always told me, think about what you're doing and be wise about it. So, and he also helped me. He worked very hard to help me get the license for the dance studio as well as for the Valentine's Day program. Going back to the Valentine's Day program, the stage was set. We had a very beautiful entrance. The auditorium was filled with people. The music was going. Everything looked amazing. And you wouldn't believe what happened next. My event manager comes up to me 30 minutes before the start of the program and tells me, "Ma'am, you have to go up to the stage and tell the people, tell the audience, announce that you are not going to do the program, you are canceling the program." So when he said that, I was confused. The guests were already seated in the front row waiting to be invited, welcomed up on the stage. And I was confused and I told him no. I was very young and this could have easily totally destroyed someone like me. At that time, I did not realize he was doing this because I was a young single female and he thought he could just break me or, stop me from doing this. He thought I needed his support to go ahead with the program. I told him very calmly he can leave and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead with the program and yes, thank you. I did not let any of my choreographers, my dance team, my crew, my team, my parents, or others who put confidence in me, trust in me, The guy wanted to tell me indirectly that I will not be able to go ahead with the program. He wanted to break me. He wanted to just tell me you wouldn't be able to do it. I still don't know how I carried out that 3-hour program. I still don't know. Yesterday I was thinking about it and I'm like, oh God, how did I do that? All I can say is that God helped me to stay focused, strong. My family and friends later, when they came to know about it, they asked me, why didn't you tell us? We would have taken care of him. I said, nah, he was not my concern. My priority was my crew, my choreographers, the dancers, the sponsors, and I was not going to give this guy any attention. Most importantly, I was not going to let my team down. So what I want to tell you is that prioritize your goals, focus on them, remove the things that don't serve you, be positive. The time that you think of negative thoughts, take that very time to think of positive thoughts. Isn't that better? At this time, I was being forced to get married. I didn't want to create tension and uncomfortable situation between my mother and I. In India, when girls are of certain age, they are expected to get married. When a girl is eligible for marriage, according to the family and the extended family or the neighbors or the family friends, remember, it's not the girl who feels or realizes, but the other people. When this happens, someone from the family or friend circle would approach the girl's family to do some matchmaking conversations. Just so you know, matches are made or families are connected based on religion, caste, because we have caste system in India. So if you're a Christian, you marry a Christian. If you're a Hindu, you marry a Hindu. And in Hindus, we have a lot of caste divisions like upper caste, lower caste, untouchables. Untouchables are not considered humans. So you can get connected or you can go into marriage alliances based on these aspects. Since I was a Christian, I was to get married only to a Christian. Now things have changed a little bit in the whole marriage concept, and girls are not forced to get married now. I did not want to get married at all. I had aspirations and ambitions. I was very career oriented, but these aunts and uncles were giving me a headache. They were bringing me a lot of marriage proposals. This is how it works when there is a match alliance, when both the families think, okay, we can go ahead with the marriage. A day is fixed, or a date is fixed for the boy, we call it a boy, not a man, the potential groom to come into the potential bride's house to see the girl. So the boy or the potential groom comes to the girl's house with his parents, with his family, or with his friends to see the girl. The girl comes out with a tray with tea and other pastries and sets them down and steps back. So the family sees, the boy's family sees the girl is okay, and very importantly, she has a light skin color. That's very good in the marriage market. And when the family feels the girl is okay for the boy, not when the girl feels the boy is okay for her, but the other way around, they go ahead with the marriage plans. They discuss certain things, and one important thing in the marriage business, I call it marriage business, is dowry. Have you heard about dowry? Yes, it is a gift that the girl's family will give to the boy or the groom's family. It could be jewelry, it could be gold, cash, furniture, car, anything. So they discuss about the dowry, and if the dowry is okay for the groom's family, then they go ahead with the marriage plans. If the dowry is not okay, they're like, no, we'll think about it, we'll let you know. So Christians normally don't give any dowry, but you know, definitely the girl is going out with a lot of gold and some cash. I always told my parents, if somebody has to get married to me, they have to give me dowry. So in a progressive family, sometimes the groom and the girl talk, you know, they're given time to talk and see what their interests are. But otherwise, you're marrying a stranger, totally a stranger. I've had many potential grooms come to me, and I always said no to them. I still remember my mother had a diary where she kept records of me saying no, no, no. My poor mother, she would get irritated. She's like, you will not get anyone. No one is going to come and marry you, because the word is going to spread that you are saying no to everyone. But for me, marriage was not my goal. I knew God had something different for me. I did not want to get married. But my mother was concerned as people started to talk bad about me. I don't know what they were saying, but they were talking bad about me. She started getting very anxious. Then she gave me an option. Either stay in India and get married or leave the country. I thought the second option was better, leave the country. I decided to leave the place, but it was not that easy. It's a lot of process, it's a big procedure and involved a lot of money. So I started searching options how to get out of this country, get out of this place. That's when some recruiting agencies started coming up like mushrooms in my state. So I approached a recruiting company. I filed my documents, the rest of the papers, and I was called to attend an interview for a UK-based university. It was on my birthday. It was on my birthday I went for the interview. The recruiter or the head of the university told me, we have just one seat available, and that's for the Masters in Education. I was like, yeah, that's great. That's one of my very special birthday gifts. But I needed finances. It was a lot of money, and in India, teachers were not paid that much. I guess even here too. My parents were ready to help, but there is a limit. Again, it was a lot of money, but I worked very hard. Though people in my circle, not my parents, but others, they always told me, you know, you need to give up that. You cannot just get married and it'll be okay. But I didn't listen to them as usual. After teaching time, after my teaching, that was from 9 to 4, I would go to the banks to apply for educational loans. But it was very tough. By the time I reach the banks, they're already closing at 5 o'clock. My mother later on told me that she used to discuss with my papa, my father, how is she going to get extra funding. But my loan was approved finally. The manager saw my certificates. I thank for those certificates. He saw my certificates and said, based on these certificates, I'm going to issue an educational loan. So next hurdle was to attend the interview at the British consulate. Chances of the visa getting denied was another worry. So I went for the interview and I see the candidates who went before me, their visas getting rejected, their passports being returned. But I was not panicking. I was not worried about my circumstances. My name was called and I went to that tiny window and the officer interviewed me for less than 60 seconds and he said, Madam, we are very pleased to issue the visa. I'm like, oh my gosh. And he said something like, welcome to the United Kingdom. Majority of the people on my face or behind my back, especially my colleagues, they said, you wouldn't make it. You should just stay here in this school and continue with your teaching. So I went to the UK to do my Master's in Educational Management in a reputed teachers' university. This was to escape marriage, 60%, and not for actual learning. After reaching the UK, I sat back and thought, God, how did this happen? How did this tiny body, back then I was tiny, not like this, do all the work? How did I get the strength and mental energy without knowing anything to go to UK? You run to pursue your goal. You work hard so you could be successful, even though the world around you might tell you you would not make it. Don't give a care. Focus and believe in yourself. It was very tough for a little hometown girl like me who never was out of the comfort zone of a parent's home to go to UK and adjust to the new surroundings. No, I'm just kidding. I was totally fine. I was in my zone. This is when I met my husband in the midst of my mother's constant reminders of marriage. The fun part is that he was in America and I was in England. It was a long distance relationship. And pretty much he spent a lot of money on telephone cards calling me. I mentioned before I never wanted to get married. But one evening after work, I came back home and I felt very lonely. I was actually crying. So I knelt down and I prayed, God, if you have set apart anyone for me as my partner, please bring him to me. And I meet my husband in 3 days. But you know what? He was praying for 7 long years for a life partner. I did not even know what his day job was. Only thing I knew was he was a worship leader in a church, which was the exact thing I was praying for. When I told my parents I want to get married or I wanted to get married, they did not believe me. They thought I was joking. Here is a person who never had a marriage plan in a bucket list, now telling them that she wanted to get married. My papa said, take 2 more days, think about it, and then get back to us. I said, no, I'm getting married. In between, one of my British friends came here to visit his fiancée, and he met my husband. He called me and he said, Mary, he's a nice guy. You should get married to him. But I asked him, is he a worship leader? And he said, yes. So my husband and I made the decision of getting married to each other without even meeting each other. We believe it was God's plan. But my husband came to meet me in Liverpool later, and the rest is history. We got married in the presence of over 2,000 people. And last week, we just celebrated our 17th anniversary. I then moved to the US. It was a very difficult transition for me as I came here pregnant and full of hormones. And I had to go through all the legal process to come here. But when I came here, I found people were very serious. They were not smiling. Maybe it was my pregnancy hormones, I don't know. I had my son and my daughter back to back. They're Irish twins. But I was not feeling happy, and I started questioning many things. Here is a person who was so career oriented, now sitting at home and doing baby duties, cooking and cleaning. Not that these are bad things, but I was someone who never ever even thought of such a setup. But I'm so glad I got the time to spend with my beautiful children in their formative years. Years passed and my children were of school age. They got enrolled in a public school, and I got actively involved in the school system. Parents in the community wrote me in to be a part of the district's education committee, and after that I became a part of the school's discipline committee. That is when a few parents asked me to run for the school board. I was like, no, I'm not a popular person, but they just encouraged me. I was told on my face that I would not win because I'm an Indian. Well, I am a naturalized US citizen, but some of the people in my community just wanted to be not so good to me. I don't want to use negative words, so I'll say not so good to me. But they did not stop me. I got elected onto the school board in 2017, and currently I'm on my second term. I'm the minority of minorities on the school board and the very first Indian to serve as a school board member. Then the COVID-19 came. At this time, I felt a great urge to go back to school and continue with my education. I've always seen Triton's big magazine on my kitchen countertop and gone through the programs, but never took any actions on them. This time I told my husband, honey, I'm going to Triton. I'm going to get my education. So I had some problem enrolling initially with my foreign certificates, but that Saturday when I came here, I said, I'm not going back without getting registered, and I got registered. So that's how I ended up here to do my Illinois Director Credentials for Early Childhood Education. And I'm the only student in this course, kind of like a trailblazer, as my professor would say. It was scary in the beginning, but my professors always encourage me, they support me, they help me, they assist me. And I'm happy to be an honors student as well. I'm so fortunate to have learned and still learning from the wonderful professors here, and to get to know some awesome people like Ms. Shakina, Ms. Rode, Ms. Elsa. As it is time to wind up my story, one thing I want to point out is that I had differences with my parents in many areas. Though I had differences, I try not to offend them, I try not to disobey them, or try not to disrespect them, as they had their valid reasons to be worried and be anxious. I prayed for their support and understanding. Many obstacles may come your way, and if a small town girl like me from India, from Kerala, could make it, I can confidently say that all of you can achieve your dreams if you stay focused. Opportunities are right in front of you. This is a land of opportunities. You just need to make the right decision and wise choices. Focus, don't give up, work hard, and remove the things that don't serve you, serve any purpose in your lives. Looking back, I can only say, wow, how did this happen? How did I come so far? And now I want to thank my mother, my papa, my wonderful husband, and my beautiful children, and my awesome mother-in-law and my brother for always supporting me. I also want to thank all my former students who cheer and say kind words to me all the time. And I especially want to give a shout out to my mother and my mother-in-law for being strong, kind, loving, hardworking, and being true role models for me. I hope I was able to tickle your brain and get your dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin run high. And thank you, Ms. Shakina, for this wonderful opportunity you extended to me to share my story. Such a privilege and honor. Thank you, and thank you all.